I bought an antique mirror at an estate sale, and 3 weeks later I saw my 19-year-old self staring back at me. Not a memory, not a photograph. A real, living reflection that shouldn't exist. Most days, the mirror is normal. It shows exactly what it should. Me at 39, graying at the temples, lines around my eyes I don't remember getting. But sometimes, just for a second or two, it shows me as I was 20 years ago. Younger face, longer hair, eyes that still believe things would work out. And yesterday, as I stared at that impossible reflection, I heard a voice in my head, my own voice, but younger, say, "Don't make the same mistake I did." Before we dive in, have you ever wished you could talk to your younger self? What would you say? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you love stories about second chances, impossible connections, and learning to listen to the parts of ourselves we've tried to forget, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now let me take you back to the day I bought a mirror that changed everything. My name is Nathan Pierce, and at 39 years old, my life was exactly what I'd built it to be: successful and stable. I was a civil engineer in Denver, working for a firm that designed bridges and highway systems. Good salary, respectable position, projects I could point to and say, "I helped build that." I lived in a modern apartment in Capitol Hill with minimalist furniture and walls that were mostly bare because I'd never gotten around to decorating. I've been divorced for 4 years, a more or less amicable split. She wanted children, I didn't. I couldn't handle the amount of responsibility, the commitment, the eternal bond that would unite us. We got married at 25. I thought it was the right path to take, to have a wife, build a family, be respected at work. We never had that overwhelming passion. It was just comfortable. I know that sounds awful. And I won't say I didn't love her at some point, but a few years later, and a few failed attempts at pregnancy made me realize that what we had wasn't enough to decide the rest of my life. She already knew what I was feeling, and I think she felt something similar too. So she decided to build a new life the way she wanted, and I supported her to do so. My life was fine. That was the problem. It was just fine. Not bad enough to complain about, not good enough to feel true happiness. Just an endless series of days that blurred together into weeks and months and years. On a Saturday in October, I went to an estate sale in a historic neighborhood near Cheeseman Park. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I'd just seen the sign and had nothing better to do. The house belonged to someone named Vera Jennings, according to the paperwork on the table by the door. She'd been 87 when she died, and her family was selling off decades of accumulated belongings. Furniture, books, kitchen items, clothes, everything tagged with prices. I wandered through rooms full of a stranger's life, feeling the particular melancholy that estate sales always evoked. All these objects that had meant something to someone, now just merchandise for strangers to pick through. In the bedroom I found the mirror. It was a standing floor mirror, about 6 feet tall, with an ornate wooden frame that looked Victorian or Edwardian dark wood with carved details along the edges. The glass was old but in good condition, slightly wavy in that way antique mirrors are. It was beautiful in a way that felt out of place in my modern apartment, but I needed something for the empty wall in my bedroom. And for some reason I couldn't articulate, I wanted this mirror specifically. The price tag said $180. I paid cash and arranged to pick it up the next day with my truck. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the mirror. Not in an obsessive way, just a quiet curiosity. Why had I wanted it so badly? I wasn't sentimental about objects. I wasn't a collector of antiques. But something about that mirror had felt right. I picked it up Sunday afternoon, wrestled it up the stairs to my third-floor apartment, and positioned it against the wall across from my bed. It fit perfectly, like it had always belonged there. For the first 3 weeks, it was just a mirror. I looked at it every morning when I got dressed, every evening when I got ready for bed. I saw exactly what I expected, myself wearing the face I'd grown accustomed to over the past decades. Then, on a Thursday morning in early November, everything changed. I was running late for work. I'd overslept, skipped my usual routine, and was rushing to get dressed. I glanced at the mirror while pulling on my shirt, and for just a fraction of a second, maybe one heartbeat, maybe two, the reflection wasn't me. It was me, but younger. Significantly younger. The face looking back at me had no gray hair, no lines around the eyes, a jawline that hadn't softened with age. It was me at 19, maybe 20. I blinked, and the reflection returned to normal, my actual reflection. 39 years old, definitely not imagining things. Jesus, I said out loud to my empty apartment. I need more sleep. I convinced myself it was fatigue. A trick of the light. The way my brain processed visual information when I was stressed and rushing. But it happened again 2 days later. I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth at the bathroom sink, and when I walked back into the bedroom, I glanced at the mirror. For 2 full seconds, long enough to really see it, the reflection showed my 19-year-old self. Same clothes I was currently wearing, but a face from 20 years ago. This time I didn't look away. I stood completely still, staring. The reflection stared back. It mimicked my movements like a normal reflection should, but the face was wrong, too young. From a different decade of my life, then it shifted back. In an instant, I was looking at myself again, 39, gray-tinged, tired. My heart was pounding. I walked up to the mirror, examined it closely. The glass was old but intact. No distortions that would explain what I was seeing, no weird angles or lighting effects. You're losing it, I told my reflection. You're actually losing your mind? I thought logically, methodically. I didn't believe in supernatural phenomena. There had to be a rational explanation. Over the next 2 weeks, it happened 7 more times. Always brief, never longer than a few seconds. Always showing me at 19, not 18, not 21, specifically 19. I knew because I remembered what I looked like at that age. I had photos from college, from that specific year of my life. I tried to document it. I set up my phone to record video of the mirror, hoping to catch the phenomenon on camera. But when I reviewed the footage, the mirror showed only my current reflection. Whatever was happening, it was visible only to my direct observation, not through a lens. I researched the mirror's history. The estate sale paperwork listed Vera Jennings as the previous owner, but I found property records showing the mirror had been in her family's home for over 60 years. Before that, the trail went cold. No dramatic history. No murders or tragedies associated with it. Just an old mirror that had witnessed decades of ordinary life. I almost convinced myself to ignore it. So what if I occasionally saw my younger self for a few seconds? It wasn't hurting anything. Maybe it was stress. Maybe my brain was processing something about aging, regret, the passage of time. Then, 3 weeks after the first occurrence, the reflection did something that couldn't be explained away. It was late on a Sunday evening. I was standing in front of the mirror, about to change into pajamas, when the reflection shifted to my 19-year-old self. I'd started to expect it by now, so I just stood still, watching, waiting for it to shift back. But this time, the young reflection didn't mimic my movements. I raised my hand to run it through my hair. The reflection didn't move. It just stood there, looking at me. Then it raised its hand, not copying me, but of its own volition, and waved. Slowly, deliberately, I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't a visual trick. This wasn't stress or fatigue. The reflection was moving independently. And then I heard it, not through my ears, but inside my head. A voice that was unmistakably my own, but younger. The voice I'd had at 19 before it had deepened slightly with age. Can you hear me? I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. What the... Please don't freak out, the voice in my head continued. I know this is impossible. But I can see you, and I think you can see me, and we need to talk. This isn't real, I said out loud, my voice shaking. This isn't happening. It is happening. I don't understand it either, but it's real. I'm you 20 years ago. I've been seeing you in mirrors for the past few weeks, an older version of me. I thought I was going crazy. But you're real, aren't you? I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the mirror. The 19-year-old reflection sat down too, mirroring my position. How is this possible? I whispered, I don't know. But I've been trying to figure out how to communicate with you. I think it only works through this specific mirror. Do you own this mirror? I bought it a month ago. At an estate sale. I don't own it yet. I'm at college. But I've been seeing you in bathroom mirrors, car mirrors, shop windows, always just for a second. Always the same older man. Now I know it's me, it's you. We're connected somehow. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to process this. Okay, assuming I'm not having a complete mental breakdown, assuming this is somehow real, why are we connected? The younger reflection, my younger self looked at me with an intensity I remembered having at that age. An earnest certainty that everything mattered deeply. I think I know why, the voice in my head said. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Do you still talk to Gabriella? The name hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't heard it, hadn't let myself think it, in years. What? No, that was 20 years ago. So you regret it as much as I'm regretting it right now. What are you talking about? I broke up with Gabriella a month ago. We'd been together for a year and a half. She wanted to talk about the future, about what happens after college. And I panicked. I told her I wasn't ready for that kind of commitment, that I needed to focus on my career, that we were too young to be making long-term plans. I closed my eyes. I remembered that conversation. I remembered every word of it because I'd replayed it in my mind 1,000 times over the past 20 years. She cried, the voice continued. She told me she loved me, that she'd wait if I needed time, but I said no. I said it was better to end it now, cleanly, before we got in too deep. She left, and I convinced myself I'd made the mature, responsible decision. But something inside me is screaming that I just made the biggest mistake of my life. And you can tell me, was it a mistake? I sat in silence for a long moment. Then, quietly, yes, it was a mistake. The worst mistake I ever made. Did you ever talk to her again? No. She transferred schools the next semester. I heard through friends that she moved to Colorado after graduation, but I never reached out. I told myself it was for the best, that we'd both moved on, that I'd made the right choice. But you didn't move on. No, I didn't. I dated other people. I got married even. But it was never the same. There was always this absence, this sense that I'd let go of something irreplaceable, and I spent 20 years trying not to think about it. The reflection looked at me with something like pity and determination mixed together. Then you have to fix it. How? It's been 20 years. She's probably married with kids. She's probably forgotten all about me. Or she hasn't, or she's divorced like you are, or she's been carrying the same regret. You don't know because you never tried. You can still do something about it. Why would she want to see me? Why would she forgive me for walking away? Maybe she won't, but at least you'll know. At least you'll have tried. I'm you, Nathan. I'm the version of you who just lost her. And it hurts so much. If you still feel a pinch of this pain, go after her. The reflection faded back to my current self. The voice in my head went silent. I sat on my bed for over an hour, staring at the mirror, waiting for my younger self to reappear. But it didn't. I barely slept that night. My mind kept circling back to Gabriella. Gabriella Perry, who I'd met in a philosophy class freshman year, who'd made me laugh harder than anyone before or since, who'd looked at me like I was someone worth knowing, who I'd loved with the kind of intensity you can only feel at 19 before life teaches you to be careful with your heart. I'd convinced myself that ending things had been practical. We were so young. We had careers to build, lives to figure out. Better to end it cleanly than let it drag on and fall apart later. But the truth I'd never admitted, even to myself, was simpler. I'd been scared. Scared of how much I felt. Scared of needing someone that much. Scared of building my life around another person and having it fall apart. So I'd chosen safety, predictability, control, and I'd spent the next 20 years in relationships that never quite worked, always keeping part of myself held back, always wondering what I'd given up. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find Gabriella. It took 3 days of searching. Social media made it easier than it would have been even a decade ago, though Gabriella had never been particularly active online. I found her on LinkedIn first. Gabriella Perry McQueen. She'd gotten married at some point, taken her husband's name. She was a high school English teacher in Boulder, about 45 minutes from Denver. Her profile picture showed a woman with the same dark eyes and warm smile I remembered, just with 20 years of life written in the lines of her face. I clicked through to her other social media. Facebook showed she'd gotten divorced 3 years ago, no kids. Photos of her with friends, with students at literary events and book clubs. I spent a week trying to work up the courage to reach out. What would I even say? Hi, remember me? I broke your heart 20 years ago, but I've been seeing my teenage self in a magic mirror and he told me I should find you. The mirror showed my 19-year-old self twice more during that week. Each time, the voice in my head asked the same question. Did you find her yet? Did you talk to her? And each time I had to admit I hadn't. What are you waiting for? My younger self asked, frustrated. Because I'm scared, I finally admitted out loud, alone in my apartment. I'm scared she'd tell me to leave her alone. I'm scared she's moved on and I'm just some guy from college she barely remembers. I'm scared that even if she does remember me, there's nothing left to salvage. So you'd rather spend another 20 years wondering? You'd rather die never knowing? That's just cowardice disguised as caution. He was right. I was being a coward. Again. On a Friday afternoon, I drove to Boulder. I'd found out through careful social media stalking that Gabriella often went to a specific coffee shop on Friday evenings. She'd checked in there multiple times, posted photos with the caption, "Weekend Ritual." It was creepy that I knew this, but I was past caring about that. I parked down the street and walked to the cafe. Through the window, I could see her sitting at a table by herself, reading a book, a cup of coffee beside her. She looked the same and completely different. The same curve of her cheek, the same way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, but 20 years older. A grown woman where there'd been a girl the last time I'd seen her. I stood outside for 5 full minutes, working up the courage to go in. I ordered a coffee I didn't want, gave myself time to back out, then walked over to her table before I could change my mind. "Gabriella?" She looked up. For a moment there was no recognition. Then her eyes widened slightly. "Nathan?" "Yeah, hi, I'm sorry to just show up like this. I was in the area, and I saw you through the window, and I wanted to say hello. If that's okay." She stared at me for a long moment. I couldn't read her expression. "Then sit down, please." I sat. We looked at each other across the small table, two people who'd once known each other intimately, now complete strangers. 20 years, she said finally. 20 years, you look good. Older, but good, so do you. Really good, she smiled slightly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Why are you here, Nathan? Really here? Not just in the area. I could have lied, made something up. But I was honest, because I made a mistake 20 years ago. And I've regretted it every day since. And I know it's insane to show up after all this time, but I couldn't not try. Even if you tell me to leave and never contact you again, at least I'll know I tried. Gabriella set her book down carefully. Her hands were shaking slightly. You broke my heart. I know. You told me I wasn't worth the risk. That your career was more important than us. I was an idiot. I was 19 and scared, and I convinced myself I was being mature when really I was just being a coward. And now? What are you now? 39 and still scared, but trying not to be a coward anymore. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I looked for you. For years, I looked for you. On social media, through mutual friends, I wanted to reach out so many times, but I was too proud. Or too hurt. And eventually I stopped looking and told myself I'd moved on. Did you move on? I got married. He was a good man. Kind, stable, everything you weren't. The marriage lasted 8 years. We got divorced because he had an affair. His excuse was that I was never present. He looked at me and said, "You're never really here with me, are you? You're always somewhere else with someone else," and he was an idiot, but he was kind of right. I'd spent 8 years married to someone who wasn't you, trying to convince myself that was enough. Gabriella, let me finish. I need to say this. You hurt me, Nathan. You really hurt me. And part of me wants to tell you to leave right now and never contact me again because you don't deserve a second chance after 20 years. My heart sank. I understand, but another part of me has been waiting for you to walk through that door since the day you walked out of my life. And I don't know which part is right. I don't know if this is a terrible idea or the thing I've needed for 20 years. Can we find out? Can we just talk? Have coffee or dinner or just sit here and talk? No expectations, no promises. Just two people who used to know each other, trying to figure out if there's anything left. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she closed her book. Okay, let's talk. We talked for 3 hours, catching each other up on 20 years of life. She told me about her marriage and divorce, about teaching high school English and loving her students, about the life she'd built that was good but always felt like it was missing something. I told her about my engineering career, about my own marriage and divorce, about the emptiness I'd tried to fill with work and achievement. I didn't tell her about the mirror. I wasn't ready to explain that yet. Maybe never would, but I told her the essential truth, that I'd never stopped regretting what I'd given up. What do you want from this? She asked. From me? You can't expect to just pick up where we left off. We're not those kids anymore. I know. I don't want to go backwards. I can't undo the past. But maybe we can move forward. As the people we are now, not the people we were then? If you're willing to try? I don't know if I can trust you not to run away again. I can't promise I'll be perfect. But I can promise I won't run. Not this time. I spent 20 years running and it got me nowhere. I'm done running. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I need time to think about this, about what I want. You can't just show up after 20 years and expect me to have all the answers right away. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. You'll wait? For how long? As long as it takes. I waited 20 years. I can wait a little longer. She smiled, a real smile this time. You've gotten better at the romantic gestures. 19-year-old Nathan was terrible at those. I've had a lot of time to practice what I should have said. We exchanged phone numbers. I drove back to Denver with my heart pounding, unsure if I just made the best decision of my life or set myself up for more heartbreak. The mirror showed my 19-year-old self that night. The voice in my head was eager, hopeful. Did you find her? Did you talk to her? I did. And? And we're going to try, slowly, carefully, but we're going to try. Did you tell her about me? About this? No, I don't know how to explain this. I'm not sure I understand it myself. That's okay. You don't have to explain. Just don't let her go again, please. I won't, I promise. But hey, all this time we kept talking about me making a move. Why don't you go after her too? I can't, or our whole life will be different. This is what Back to the Future says, isn't it? I don't know if you are real or if I'm just hallucinating, but I don't mind if you change my past. As long as I'm by her side, over the next several months, Gabriella and I rebuilt something that felt entirely new. We had dinner once a week, then twice a week. We texted daily. We talked about everything, our fears, our failures, the people we'd become when we weren't together. It wasn't easy. There were conversations where old hurts resurfaced. Times when Gabriella pulled back because trusting me felt too risky. Times when I felt overwhelmed by the weight of trying to make up for 20 years of absence. But we kept showing up. We kept trying. 6 months after that first coffee shop meeting, Gabriella said she loved me. Not the way she'd loved me at 19. That kind of love was impossible to recapture, but in a way that felt deeper, more honest, built on the reality of who we actually were rather than the fantasy of who we'd wanted to be. I said it back. And I meant it in a way I'd never meant anything. The mirror stopped showing my 19-year-old self after the first night we reconnect. I'd see my regular reflection, day after day, and the younger version never appeared again. The voice in my head went silent. I understood why. We'd done what we needed to do. My younger self had reached across 20 years to fix the mistake we'd made, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. There was nothing left to say. 18 months after I walked into that coffee shop, Gabriella and I decided to move in together. She had a bigger place in Boulder, so it made sense for me to move in with her rather than the other way around. We spent a weekend sorting through my belongings, deciding what to bring and what to leave behind. Duplicate kitchen items, furniture that wouldn't fit, things I'd been holding on to for no good reason. I stood in my bedroom looking at the mirror. It had been part of my life for almost 2 years at that point. It had shown me something impossible and changed everything. "Are you bringing that?" Gabriella asked, standing in the doorway. I looked at my reflection, just my reflection, 39, going on 40, gray at the temples, but happier than I'd been in decades. "No," I said. "I think it's time to let someone else have it. We had a garage sale that Saturday. Most of my furniture sold quickly." The mirror I priced at $150, less than I'd paid for it. A young man stopped to look at it around noon. He was maybe 23, 24. Fresh out of college, probably. He had that slightly lost look young people get when they're trying to figure out what comes next. "How much for the mirror?" he asked. $150, but I could do $100 if you promise to take care of it. He laughed. "Is it special or something?" I thought about how to answer that. Maybe it's just a mirror, but it helped me when I needed it. I hope it helps you too if you need it. He looked at me strangely, probably wondering if I was crazy. But he bought it, loaded it into his car, and drove away. Gabriella came up beside me, slipping her hand into mine. "No regrets?" I looked at her, this woman I'd lost and somehow found again. This second chance I'd been given that I'd never expected and didn't deserve but was grateful for every single day. "None," I said. "Not anymore. I never saw my 19-year-old self again. But he'd given me a gift, the courage to try again, to risk being hurt, to choose love over safety. And in return, I'd given him something too, the knowledge that the mistake we'd made at 19 didn't have to define the rest of our lives, that it was never too late to choose differently. The mirror was gone, but I didn't need it anymore. I could see my reflection in regular mirrors now and be okay with what I saw, because I wasn't just looking at what I'd become. I was looking at what I'd chosen to become, what I'd fought to become. And standing next to me, her hand in mine, was the person who'd always been worth fighting for. Even when it took 20 years and an impossible mirror to figure that out. Have you ever wished you could talk to your younger self? What would you say? Share your story in the comments below. If this story about second chances, impossible connections, and learning to listen to the parts of ourselves we've tried to forget touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next thought-provoking tale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.